Hey, welcome all you 3Ders to an episode of All Things 3D. This morning is October 9th, 2014, and we are interviewing a very special guest, a modeler, 3D modeler, coming in live,
He may
Mr.
be more than just a modeler. We don't know yet.
And he goes by Val, that's correct.
Valcrow,
Yeah,
right?
Valcrow. Yep.
Valcrow.
I go by my internet name.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, say that again.
Cutting it. Yeah, I go by Valcrow as my internet name.
Okay, and your real name, though, is Jacky Wan?
Yep, that's my real name, and so I own and operate a small VFX studio. We do everything from like motion graphics to producing commercials and stuff like that. So
Okay,
that's my real life, and then like 3D printing is like my hobby per se.
Okay, so I'm going to butcher the name again. You have a blog out there called Reticubrix?
It's Ridicubrix.
Ridicubrix.
It's kind of like ridiculous and like bricks put together. It's sort of like a catchy name that we came up with because if you ever like try to get a domain online, it's just like impossible to get anything. Like everything in the world, everything you've ever thought of has been taken. But I kind of like Ridicubrix and it wasn't taken, so that's what we came up with.
Okay. Well, that sounds interesting. So there's no, as I mentioned in my email, a throw out there to Stanley Kubrick or anything, right?
No, it's not like that. It's kind of just like ridiculous. You know how you have just words like slang words that you use sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like ridiculous kind of happens a lot. So like it eventually morphed into like a little bit more. So it's like Ridicubrix. I don't know how it. Yeah, I don't know how it morphed into that exactly, but like.
It sounds fun.
English is it's a weird language.
so Val, spell that out for me. I want to go there right now.
So it's REDI. Wait, can you show my screen or?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead. Well, actually, you can. Up on the left-hand side, there's a little green screen with an arrow.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The
if
ridiculous
you click on that,
things
then
we
you can
made.
share your screen. You see how that? Try that.
Oh, there we go. Can you see that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Not there we go. Yep. Okay. And I have it on my end too, so I'll just switch to mine.
So this is oh yeah. So before we get into Ridicubrix, my sort of main work is like commercial work. So we do stuff like like commercials and Nissan commercials and Hockey Night in Canada if you're in Canada, people like that kind of stuff, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we do everything from motion graphics to like VFX.
ThoughtForm Digital Incorporation is actually your visual effects.
Yes,
studio.
exactly.
Okay.
And then if you've seen the latest Ultimaker videos, we produced like the first 5 of them as well.
Oh, you produced that one.
Yeah.
Excellent job. I really liked the second one. It had a very heartfelt, warm feeling to it.
I think that's the only one that we didn't produce. We produced the crazy the crazy American style ones.
Well, why don't we play one in the background? You can do that. So why don't you go ahead and show one, so that our audience can get an opportunity to see.
Here, let's go with the launch.
Going global. Here it is. They're spinning out of control.
Yeah, very. So essentially, your roots are more in the visual effects area, and then you've, like me, kind of ventured into the tangible market, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, so I'm mostly post work, so I do mostly the visual effects and the motion graphics. And my brother, who has all this stuff, is like he does the production end of things. So we just sort of work together, and then he produces. He shoots the footage, and I'll usually do the post or VFX on it. So that kind of works well because like we then have a complete package to produce pretty much any kind of commercial. We can do the back end, we can do the front end, or like everything in between. So it works really well, and that knowledge has sort of gotten me into like 3D printing as well because like it's sort of like a seamless transition.
Okay. One thing I noticed, Jackie, is if you press on that little green screen again, it'll come back to you.
Oh, okay.
You had actually.
There we go.
We're actually getting a. I was looking at myself again. I said, "Whoa!" So sometimes if you click on the screen that has the actual Google Hangouts on air, it'll kind of create an infinite tunnel type effect.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
you really can't. Yeah, it is kind of neat sometimes. Okay.
So
well,
one of the reasons we contacted you, or one of the things that you've been gaining a lot of momentum, it seems like on the 3D forums and places like Umagine and things, is because of this 3D printed Ducati, the 1199 Superbike.
Yeah, that's what caught my attention.
Yeah, that you printed on an Ultimaker, and that's what caught our attention. We saw this. It was a big buzz on Reddit. And I mean, you look at it and you're like looking at it, and I'm like, no way! What? This guy must do this professionally. This guy must have spent hours and hours and hours doing this, because it looks. I thought it might be even like functional. It looks real in the photos. You did such a good job with the lighting and the painting and all this, and then it said you did it on an Ultimaker, and I'm saying, what?
Yeah.
How?
What?
So you're gonna have to tell us all about this.
Yeah, one of the things. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things.
Okay,
no,
you go first.
Go ahead, Jackie. You're the guy.
So I mean, yeah, the main challenge was making it on an Ultimaker. I mean, like, a bike is probably the worst shape you can imagine for like an FDM kind of printing, because it's got things sticking out everywhere, and it's just like, handlebars from exhaust. So making that accurate was like a huge challenge. But I was looking for a challenge, so that's part of the reason why I chose to make that.
So did you model this yourself, or did you find a model and then extract the components? How did you go about actually creating the Ducati?
So I started with a model base that I think I bought, and the reason for this is because like Ultimaker asked me to make something for Ducati. I was making models for them before, like sort of simpler stuff, and then but they were like, they had an event at Ducati, so I started making these little like keychain things, but like I wanted to make something more complex and cool. So at some point they were like, hey, we want to give something to Ducati, and so they asked me to make this bike. But like they didn't know what I was going to make or whatever, or how complex it was going to be. So I just kind of went buck wild, and I made the most complex thing that I sort of could think of. But my goal was to just make it as as accurate as possible to the real one, or the picture reference that you saw. And then but that in itself was the challenge, because like making that work on an FDM printer was like really difficult.
Well, I can imagine. But you obviously broke it down into components.
Yes.
And how many components actually did it come out to be? And from what I understood, you actually have a few of those pieces in front of you that you can show us. Is that correct, Jackie?
I do. So the components, there's around 42 pieces. I think there might be a bit more here and there. But the coming pieces like this, I don't know if you can see this. This is while we're painting, so it's kind of stuck onto something. But this is the muffler.
Oh, okay.
And these pieces, these exterior pieces, they're sort of the hardest part, because they have almost like no thickness to them, and like when the model came in, it had no thickness at all. It was just like a shell. So everything had to be broken down. And then in addition to that, I sort of made it. Show you. I sort of made it kind of snap together. Like what I like to do in most of my 3D designs is I like to make them sort of easy to assemble for the most part.
Okay. So did you use different colored filament, or did you use one single color and everything else has been painted? And then we'll get into how you painted it a little bit later. But so did you use a combination of the two, or just one single filament color?
So I usually print in gray. The one that you see on the on Ridiculous is just printed straight silver. And the reason for this is because when you paint it, it's like you need to know where your primer is gone. So it needs to be a different color as your primer. I use a black primer. But it really doesn't matter what color you sort of printed it. I mean, this one's printed in like 3 different colors because I printed it from like 3 different printers. So this piece is white. But it doesn't really matter once you prime it, like everything looks the same. So Like, yeah, there you go. That one's like silver PLA.
Okay, so you use silver PLA, so this is the raw components here, and then you use a flat black an aerosol can, or do you use a spray gun or a spray brush for all of these?
This one's a little different. Usually I just do acrylic, so like on an airbrush, and it's sort of a lot simpler. It dries almost instantly. For this one, because it needed to be shiny, like I used lacquer paints and the bottle here, but these ones, really nice stuff.
Yeah, it is actually. Except it's like you said, it's a lot easier or more difficult to work with. You've got to use paint thinners and acetone in order to clean up your brushes, so it's a little more difficult to work with, where acrylic is just water-based and much easier to work with, and also it's safer for you. So.
Yeah, for sure. I lied. I used enamels for the red, so the shiny red is enamels, but it has a lacquered like clear coat on it.
Okay.
So that's what gets that sort of shiny car paint look, which is kind of hard to achieve with like acrylics, because acrylics is very matte in general.
Yeah, well, what I've liked to do in the past is just use an acrylic base and then use a lacquer or something on top of it, another clear coat. So then you can use all the same tints and then use a clear coat or a matte. I use matte coatings as well in order to minimize the gloss if need be.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes this model look better. It's like having the different activities. So like you said, using matte varnishes and gloss varnishes. And actually the chrome is like a special like alclad lacquered chrome. It's like you have to use a special glossy spray. And then like after that dries, it looks like super shiny. And then you put the chrome on it at an angle, and it like makes it look like chrome. But chroming, like scraping chrome, is like the most difficult, I think. Like can spray always looks a little matte. It never looks reflective enough. But like I found that this stuff works well.
Yeah, it does look really good.
It looks like chrome.
And Val, you're in the Los Angeles area?
No, I'm in Canada.
Oh, Canada. Okay. Because I know down here, I've actually sat in on a symposium, and they talked about electroplating. FDM or I know ABS, you can actually get it electroplated. So that might be an option too.
It might be a little expensive.
But you have to, yeah, it might be expensive, and you do need to account for the electroplating process in your model. So like if you wanted a hole diameter to be, 3 millimeters, or let's say 3 millimeters on the money, you're in the model, you need to account for the fact that electroplating is going to fill in that hole a bit more. So in each process or each dip adds material onto your model. So I've seen people do this electroplating. I haven't experimented with myself, but this might be a perfect opportunity to break into this, into chroming plastic. It's really interesting idea.
Yeah, when I was at Maker Faire in New York, like I saw this one booth where they did like some kind of plating in some kind of blue solution. Like I think they were only it was either copper or nickel or something.
Okay.
But it
might have been nickel. Nickel has a lower melting temperature.
Yeah, but it was like they just dipped and spun like PLA inside like this water solution, and then eventually electroplates, and it was very thin though, like you could see all the lines, like there wasn't any thickness to it really. So I don't know how well it looked okay, but I'm sure that technology is going to get better.
That's not my dog today.
Interesting. So okay, well I want to know a little bit more about the process, software-wise. I mean, I'm a software guy. I work in SolidWorks every day. I want to know, like, if you don't mind sharing with us, what you use to break apart this model, maybe some of your insider tips of where to go to find. You said you bought this model, so you started with a bought model from somewhere. Maybe you want to share with us if you.
Yeah, the first place I usually go to for models is Turbo Squid. Like,
okay.
And I only bought it because I only had 2 weeks to put this together. So I was like, there's no way I'm modeling this in 2 weeks.
Right.
And breaking it apart and painting it and sending it off. So that's the one main reason why I started with a bot model. But it's a really nice model. And I just found, I don't know if it was Turbo Squid I got it from, but that's usually the first place that I go.
Yeah, I went out there to look, and I didn't see a Ducati 1199, so I don't know if it would have been Turbo Squid. So.
Yeah, I think it was something else. I can't remember though.
But so you buy a model and then you take it and you take that model, because that model is probably just like one solid part. It's not like an assembly, a series of parts.
It's not it's assembly of parts, but like if you see like this piece, it'll only be the shell. So the interior pieces, like it doesn't exist. So you have to create that interior piece, and then you have to make sure it doesn't intersect with like all the other stuff, or just work. But like 90% of the work gone into it is, breaking it up and making sure everything fits together, and like actually just making it printable, because usually, especially smooth surfaces, is usually just a shell. Like it's a zero thickness, like
Right.
curve.
Yeah, and that's what I've run into as well when you take 3D models normally used for visualization is the same thing you're talking about. So you have to thicken them, or you make them solid and then you cut them up. So when you were actually creating the pieces, you had to take that into consideration, and since they were supposed to fit fairly well together, did you also reduce edges and things like that by a few microns in order so that you had a better fit? Because obviously what I have found that if you just cut something, that's normally not good enough. The surfaces need to be pushed back a little bit. Did you run into that as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was more complicated than that, because like things were, it looks like a VFX model, so everything was just interpenetrating, and I had to actually model the thickness. Like I remodeled like a lot of pieces, just keeping the outer shell so that it looks proper, but like the majority of the pieces were remodeled to make sure it like works and it prints, and that's kind of the hardest part, making like deciding beforehand which direction it needs to print, and then where you want the seams and everything.
And you may have said this already. What was the actual file type? Was it a solid model or was it a mesh model? And if it were the latter of the two, what was the application that you work with?
So it was a mesh model. I usually only work with mesh models because, like, I do VFX, so it's easy for me working that. And I work in 3ds Max. If you show my screen, I have an example here.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is this is my laptop, so I'm a little foreign to its controls. But this is part of the lightsaber that you've probably seen before.
Okay, yeah, I did look at that.
And so basically, I usually have things set up like this, where I would model all the pieces that I need to subtract, and then like also add, and then at the very end, I'll combine everything. Which is very.
Are you trying to share your screen? Are you?
Yeah.
Are you? I don't think you have it sharing quite yet.
Yeah.
Let me try this thingy. Okay, you see it now?
I see.
We see us. So
there you go.
Oh, there we go. Yep, that's us.
Okay.
No,
So this is one of the centerpieces of the lightsaber. But this is how I usually have it set up. And then the red pieces are subtraction pieces, and then the blue pieces are usually addition pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a super archaic way of doing things. Like it's not like SolidWorks where it's like you can define a circle and change it. In polys, it's just a lot more difficult to work with.
Right.
But this is what I do, and it works most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. But at the end, so once you sort of get all these things, you'll have your complete piece. But it takes a while to combine sometimes, especially if your model is complicated. If I need to adjust anything, I'll have to go back one step and then just sort of re-boolean things. So it's not the most efficient way of doing things, and I don't recommend actually using like poly-based software. But it's what I know, and it's fast to visualize. So.
And this was the final result of that, correct?
Yeah.
Jacky?
That's the one.
And so kind of talk about, obviously, printing the parts, as you said, you're using a silver filament. Obviously, this is not what actually comes out. So you've actually done some what they call wear painting. in order to give it a feeling of that it's been used. And that is something that's really, I wouldn't say difficult to master, but it takes time to master. So, it's easy just to throw some paint on something to make it look new, but to make it look like it's been used is a talent in itself. So can you kind of go through maybe a little bit of how you approach this? I think you actually had a video as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I made a video tutorial on like this painting specifically because it was kind of interesting. I just learned how to paint that, there it is, as I sort of went. But I saw this tutorial online. They were like, try to use salt. And so what you do is you get some salt, you crush it up into sort of varying sizes, and then you sprinkle it on, put some water on, and then you let it dry. And then once you paint your sort of top coat to your silver, once you brush off the salt, it sort of reveals the rust underneath, and it creates like a nice effect.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you? Obviously, being a visual effects, you probably saw all of the Matrix trilogy movies, and for some reason, the Ultimaker reminds me of the scenes of when they were in the control room, which was actually their minds in a control room, which I'm still kind of trying to get my head around. Why would you do that? But oh well. But it kind of has that look, where the scene at the end of 2001, where it's a completely white room. Oh well. I like the Ultimaker's look. I have one as well. So it looks like you have an Ultimaker too.
I have a one original which I built from a kit, which actually most of the stuff is made from the original, including the Ducati, and I also have a 2 recently I got. And actually, I have the Plus right now, just because we were filming it, so I get to play with that one for a little bit.
The Plus what?
The Ultimaker Plus.
Really? Is that a new one? That's okay.
The original Plus, yeah, that's the new one that they announced.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping they come out with the second extruder for the Ultimaker soon. I would love to be able to do support filament with that. So obviously, I have a feeling that your little airbrush there is fairly pricey. So if somebody wanted to start doing this, what would you suggest for them to buy? I mean, there's plenty of them on Amazon, and you can get them anywhere from $30 on up. Obviously, I don't recommend, and I'm wondering if you would agree that you should probably spend a little more if you want to get into this.
Yeah, I mean, there's cheap ones. Like I hear a lot of advice of people getting like a cheap one first, like a $30 one, just to sort of play around with, and then get a better one as your skill increases. But there's different mentalities. Like I like my tools being like really nice. Like you buy it once and you're pretty much done. Like I'm really happy with this airbrush. I actually have it with me. But
is that the one that you did your little blog post on as well?
Yeah, I have this little airbrush station thing. That I actually 3D printed as well. You'll see it in the video, and a lot of people have been asking me for it. But yeah, it's like this is I think the Harder and Steenbeck airbrush. You can pretty much get anything, and like the whole purpose is just so you can lay down like nice, like clean, flat surfaces. For the lightsaber, you don't need to do any detail work with the airbrush. So a cheap $30 airbrush would probably work. But if you want to get into more stuff, like if you were painting like the Mechs that that I have around as well, then that requires slightly more like fine tuning and finessing. So like a better airbrush is probably required there. But I'd like to buy a good tool and just like have it forever. And like I find it's like it's cheaper that way, and it's also less stressful. Like I don't like my tools breaking down on me.
Sure. Yeah, you're
totally
dead on.
wow. So how much did that airbrush cost?
I think it was like around 300, or it came with a compressor as well, so I don't know if that includes the compressor or not. But it was a fairly expensive one, and it's kind of hard to find in Canada, so that's probably why it's more expensive as well.
Well, yeah, in the past, I'm still looking for another airbrush. I'm getting more into it, I'll show you my little girl, gal, that I will be sending you today after this. Like I said, I sent you out the shipping already for it, or the shipping notice, but I thought I'd hang on to it, showed it off last night, and I'll show it again today. So I basically brushed on everything, but I wish I had my airbrushes again. I've been out of the game for a while. So I appreciate you talking about that. But one of the things that I went onto your blog, and I noticed that you've had several things other than the. Let me see if I can get back to it. It doesn't want to take me back. There we go. It was something called Atlas. Let's see if I can find it, which I actually think is kind of neat, and I'm wondering if the Atlas is available for sale, or is the model available anywhere for somebody to build on their own?
Yeah, so the Atlas is from Mechwarrior. I don't know if you're familiar with Mechwarrior, but it's a game called Mechwarrior Online, and that's sort of the biggest mech that you can get. It goes from 20 tons to 100 tons, and that's like the biggest one that you can get. I've always liked Mechwarrior's designs, like way back when when we used to play Mechwarrior 2, it was like a really old school game. But they made a new one.
The idea of Mechwarriors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then and they updated all the designs, and they look really cool. So I decided to make. I actually started with a catapult. Actually, if you actually show you that.
One thing I noticed is that there's a little bit of Cyloning that's going on. What I've done in the past, if you minimize your head movement, that normally prevents that.
Okay.
You had a model that you wanted to show us?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's it in life, huh? Oh, cool.
So this is what I started with. It's a catapult. It's probably like my third print that I've ever done on the Ultimaker. Okay.
And that's in your blog as well.
Yeah. So I made one of these guys, and then it was, I found it was too small in general. FDM's not really good for stuff that small to retain all the details. So the next one I did was I did the Atlas. So I made that one a lot bigger, and that worked out a lot better. So that guy's here.
Wow, those are cool. Well, we've had two other guests on, one from Germany and one from India, that are doing something similar. So if you go back to our podcast, you can go back and see them. And it looks like there's a lot of creative people that with some talent that, in your case, and actually I think the other person was also in visual effects. It's kind of migrated. Do you remember what his name was?
What was it? The Ronin that he made?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I actually met him at Maker Faire because he was at the Ultimaker booth with us. He brought a ginormous one.
Yep.
One that's I don't know 3 feet tall or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it was incredible because it was I thought my stuff was complicated, but that's way beyond complicated. It was 400 parts for the small one.
Yeah.
So. I saw it in real life, and I was like, "Wow, this is insane."
Yeah,
but I got to talk to the guy.
Yeah, we did an interview with him. What was about 2 or 3 months ago, and he was telling us how the visual effects market is kind of flattened, or the bottom fell out. So he admitted that he was unemployed, actually working for his mother at the time, and this was kind of his side thing. So it's really good to see that he's actually getting some attention, because Ronin was really a cool model. And then you come up, so it appears that there's more and more people who are taking their 3D printers and actually crafting their own custom-made models. I'd played, as probably like you did, you probably built a lot of plastic models or plastic styrene models back when you were younger, in my case, even when I was an adult, and really loved it. Now you can do this on your own, and it's kind of becoming a passion again to do this. So I really kind of like that. So I don't know if you did the Thor hammer because of the attention that the Marvel magazine movie series has been creating, but you've got this cool looking hammer as well.
That one is just sort of I think I made it for a friend because he likes that kind of stuff. So I made a big one initially, and then I thought hey, this would be cool if it was smaller. So I made a really small one, and I actually like that one better. But it's only 2 inches for thing, and it's got a leather handle. but I just thought it was cool. Most of the stuff I make is just cool stuff.
So, are any of your models other than the Ducati available as parts or a 3D model that somebody else can print, or are you providing a store so that if somebody wanted to purchase your items, are they available?
So I have sort of stuff all over the place. The Ducati is, it's free. It's on Imagine. The Lightsaber is also free. You can download. Like both ones. I made one version that's like really easy to print. It's 4 parts. You stick them together. And then there's another one that's 14 parts that like the prop community sort of likes more because it's like much more accurate. Even though like 90% of people won't notice, but that's what I wanted to do with that one. And but for the other stuff, the Atlas, the Mechwarrior stuff is not for sale or online, just because like it's sort of their IP, and like I haven't made that available, for obvious reasons. But I did show them, and I did send them one. So I mean, they know about it, and like it's really cool. They're really cool with it, as long as you don't sell it, pretty much. Sure. I actually made one of them for charity. I have that one here actually. This is for a cancer.
Oh, good for you.
But
that's really cool.
But I made 3 of these, and one of them went to the game company, and one of them went to cancer patient's family. And then they raised a whole bunch of money by making this special edition mech, and then people, like, whatever proceeds they made from it, they sort of donated that to the Cancer Society. So that was part of like, a thing that we did, which was cool.
Awesome. Very
cool. That sounds really neat. Okay, so to the thing that I want to get to.
Yeah,
so, this is what I saw, and I said, wow, that's really impressive, but I noticed it seemed kind of lonely. Like there wasn't anything to actually fulfill the need of a motorcycle. So I don't know why I came up with it, but I thought, wouldn't it be kind of neat to create a rider? So I worked with Jacky. Jacky sent me the original model, and I'm hoping that the scale works out for you. I tried to match it based upon that model, and I came up with this. So I will show it to you. And then it will be in the mail, but I'm sending it standard because it was like $30 or $40 to send it otherwise. So it should be there in about a week, maybe 2 weeks. But this is Ducati Girl.
That looks awesome. It's very Tron-y.
Well, that was what I was looking for.
She's got like a hyper-age spacesuit,
Well, these are pneumatic tubings that help brace her if she gets into an accident. I don't know. I came up with my own little sci-fi jargon. But what was funny is that, as you're aware of, I did this on an SLA printer, the Form 1, in 2 pieces because it could be printed as 1 piece, so like a lot of your stuff. So I did have a joint, but I used resin and lasered it to fill it in. But then I said, well, let me use some resin to kind of smooth out some other things, and I found out that it works really well in narrow areas, and even though I did UV cure it, it still was leaking through. I was using a, what was I using? I think just a standard flat enamel for the suit, and that just wasn't working. So I finally went over it again with a latex. So that's why she actually kind of has a latex type look to her.
Yeah.
And even though it's considered a flat, it still had a semi-gloss. But the helmet, I went with a gloss. So if you notice, the helmet visor is a little shinier. So when you get it, I put some packing material. You may have to smooth it. Huh? I'm sorry?
Did you sand it at all? Because it looks pretty smooth. Like FDM prints don't come out like that at all.
Well, the nice thing about SLA is that you don't have any ridges, you don't see any real apparent.
Right.
So there was a little bit on the back because that's where I had to put the support. So I did do some sanding back here, and then like I said, I sprayed it with a flat, and then I painted an actual latex over the top of it. So that's kind of taken away some of the surface. Now the thing is, and you can't see it, but when you actually get it, there is some cracking because again I don't know why it cracked, other than I don't think. When I layered another UV coating on top of that, I think for some reason, it didn't cure all the way. So you'll see a little bit in the legs, and I'll have to figure out why. The material I used was from Made Solid. It's a UV resin. So with all the newer SLA printers coming out, you might want to get one for some of the smaller parts, because you can truly, I don't know if you can see the detail in the hand, but let's see, I have to Can you see the detail in the hand there?
Yeah,
it's all
so
detailed.
Kind of can.
Oh well.
But I mean, it looks like the scale is like way beyond what like I think FDM printers can do right now. So that looks awesome.
That's the truth. For gross parts, I think FDM is the way to go, but in this case, this is a very large part, but at the same time, I'm able to get the nuances of the actual hands. Like I said, the pneumatic tubes that I placed on it afterwards came out really well. So I was very pleased with it, other than, you can't print SLA with large parts, but like you just break them down, and that's what I did with this. So that'll be in the mail today, and cross
That's
fingers,
awesome.
you'll be able to assemble yours and then put the writer on it and send me a few images of it, and it's yours to do whatever you want. In fact, I identified. Go ahead.
I think we're going to like Maker Faire Toronto, and I'll probably bring this along with that writer on it, and then we'll have it on like a turntable. So that's our plan.
Well, that would be awesome. And,
awesome.
So I wrote it as a gift to you, so that's the way it's being claimed.
Well, thank you.
So hopefully there won't be any tariffs on your end for that. So I'm hoping maybe a week or two. I don't know how long it normally takes standard up. I can't call it priority. What do they call it? Standard, I don't know. Express service, not even express. There's a name they give it, but it's not as good as what we call priority here, which is 2 days.
First class.
First class. Thank you, Chris. So first class, I think it said a week to 2 weeks. So, but I think that still gives you time before the Toronto, which is what date, if I remember, in that November?
I think it's November something. They haven't got back to me yet, so like I don't even know what's happening. But like
well,
I think
they would
they're really
be
busy
fools not to allow you to be there. That's my.
But if we're there, we'll be there with like Ultimakers and like and this guy as our baby showpiece. I think that'd be really cool.
All right, well, that's about it. We've kind of run over again. We try to keep these at 30 minutes, but
Val, we really appreciate you coming on the show, and we look forward to catching up with you again sometime in the future. Thanks to all our listeners.
Yep, and if you don't mind, we'll probably bring you back on as a guest crasher on our weekly, so maybe if the thing does occur in Toronto, maybe you can jump back on for our guest crashing, which is every Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we call it 3D in Review. And we'd love to have you back on for a few minutes to talk about.
And don't forget, to check out Val's blog and website at ridicubricks.com.
Yes, Ridicubricks. Okay. Well, thank you again, Jacky, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Great.
Adios.